Nothing says happy birthday, quite like watching your husband's face drain of color faster than my 401k during a recession when he walks into a surprise party with another woman. There I was, standing in the middle of our living room, surrounded by 40 of Bennett's closest friends, family, and colleagues, holding a professionally decorated 3-tier birthday cake that took me 3 weeks' salary to commission. Everyone was frozen in that awkward half-crouch we all adopt when waiting to yell surprise, except now we were all processing the same unexpected plot twist. Bennett Beckett, my husband of 8 years, had just walked through our front door with his arm wrapped around a stunning redhead who was definitely not on the guest list I'd meticulously crafted over the past month. I'm Talia Beckett, 34, high school English teacher at Oak Ridge Preparatory Academy in Highland Park, a suburb of Dallas where the houses are big, the drama is bigger, and apparently, the marriages are about as real as the designer handbags being sold out of car trunks at the strip mall parking lot. The redhead, who I would soon learn was named Sybil Lowell, 29, pharmaceutical sales representative with a penchant for married men and terrible judgment in accessories, looked around our crowded living room with wide eyes before turning to Bennett. "You said you were single, that your house was being renovated," she exclaimed, her voice hitting that perfect pitch that shatters both crystal and marriages simultaneously. My neighbor Pearl, 62, self-appointed HOA vigilante and professional gossip, dropped her carefully arranged charcuterie board. The imported brie rolled across our hardwood floor like tumbleweed in a Western standoff. My brother Sterling, 38, former college linebacker with anger management issues that resurfaced magnificently in moments like these, lunged forward only to be intercepted by my father, who grabbed his arm with surprising strength for a 65-year-old retired history professor. Bennett's father, Otto, 70, a stoic Midwesterner who had flown in from Minnesota specifically for this occasion, methodically removed his sport coat as though preparing for hand-to-hand combat. His mother, Greta, 68, kindergarten teacher turned watercolor artist, began sobbing quietly, her mascara creating abstract art down her cheeks. The room hung in that peculiar limbo where time stretches like warm taffy, everyone waiting for the inevitable explosion, the screaming, the throwing, the dramatic exit. They expected the wronged wife to perform her designated role in this suburban tragedy. Instead, I smiled. Not the warm smile I'd practiced for yearbook photos, but the kind that makes students confess to cheating before I've even accused them. "Well, this is certainly a plot twist worthy of a season finale," I said, walking toward them with measured steps. I set the cake down on the coffee table with the precision of a bomb disposal expert. "Bennett, sweetheart, it seems you've brought an unexpected guest to your surprise party." Bennett's face was performing an impressive color wheel rotation. White, red, green, then back to white. "Talia, I can explain," he stammered, suddenly finding our reclaimed barnwood floors fascinating. "Oh, I'm sure you can," I replied, my voice honey-sweet with underlying arsenic. "You've always been creative with explanations, like when you explained working late every Thursday for the past 4 months, or explained the perfume on your dress shirts as a new office air freshener." I turned to Sybil, whose righteous indignation was rapidly morphing into horrified comprehension. "You must be the renovation project he's been working on," I said, extending my hand. "I'm Talia, the wife he apparently forgot to mention. Welcome to our completely unrenovated home of 6 years." The collective intake of breath from our audience was enough to lower the barometric pressure in the room. "Wife?" Sybil repeated, as though trying out a foreign word. "He said he was divorced, that his ex-wife was vindictive and still had mail coming here." I laughed, not the polite chuckle I use at parent-teacher conferences when dads make unfunny jokes, but a genuine, unrestrained laugh born from the absurd liberation of watching your life implode in real time. "Well, that's creative. I've been called many things, but vindictive ex-wife is a new one, especially since I didn't know I was an ex yet." I picked up a cupcake with an artisanal fondant topper that had cost me $7 each. "Feliz cumpleaños, mi amor. May I offer you a cupcake to celebrate your spectacular achievement in method acting? You've been playing the role of devoted husband so convincingly these past 8 years. The Academy should be calling any minute." My brother finally broke free from my father's grasp. 8 years of her life, you lying piece of sterling language, my mother interrupted. There are more creative ways to express contempt than profanity. My mother, Josephine, 64, retired district attorney, hadn't raised us to be vulgar in crisis. Bennett's colleague Wade, 36, senior accountant and apparent enabler based on his guilty expression, was already edging toward the door. I should probably, he gestured vaguely toward the exit. Oh, please stay, I insisted, my smile fixed in place. We're just getting to the interactive portion of the evening. I call it tell the truth or get the hell out of my house. Bennett, since it's your birthday, you get to go first. I paused, reconsidering. Actually, I'll start. I just caught your grand entrance on our security camera, and I've already forwarded the footage to my lawyer. Isn't technology wonderful? Anyone want champagne? I suddenly have a lot to not celebrate. After my announcement about the security footage, Sybil's face flushed crimson with embarrassment and rage. She hurled her designer purse at Bennett's chest with impressive accuracy. You have a wife? And a whole house? Her gaze shifted to me, a flash of unexpected female solidarity crossing her features, before she ripped off the delicate necklace he'd apparently given her and dropped it dramatically into the crystal punch bowl. Bennett's colleagues began discreetly filing out while his college friends remained frozen in their spots, caught in the quicksand between loyalty and basic human decency. His mother, still crying, marched directly toward him. How could you? This isn't how we raised you. His father, Otto, a man who expressed emotion approximately once per decade, simply shook his head with profound disappointment, placed his arm around his wife's shoulders, and guided her out without uttering a single word. My brother made another attempt to reach Bennett, but was restrained by two quick-thinking guests. 8 years of her life, you absolute fraud. Pearl, meanwhile, was discreetly documenting the entire meltdown on her phone, while my best friend Daphne, 34, pediatric surgeon and crisis management expert, whispered that she'd already called a rideshare service for Bennett. When the last shell-shocked guest had departed, I faced Bennett, who sat alone on our sectional sofa, the one we'd spent 3 weekends arguing over at Restoration Hardware before finally compromising. You have exactly 20 minutes to pack essentials, I informed him with eerie calm. Tomorrow, I'm calling a locksmith. Talia, please, he attempted. It's not what it looks like. Sybil is just... Save it for the judge, I cut him off. And no, I will not talk when I'm calmer. Some things can't be fixed with conversation, and this happens to be one of them. As I walked away, I noticed our wedding photo on the mantel. Bennett dipping me for a kiss under an arbor of white roses, both of us laughing. It looked like a scene from someone else's life now, a perfect moment belonging to strangers. The morning after Bennett's spectacular birthday surprise revelation, I woke up in our king-sized bed alone for the first time in 8 years. The silence felt both deafening and oddly refreshing, like finally turning off a radio station that had been playing nothing but static disguised as love songs. I rolled over to check my phone. 17 missed calls from Bennett, 23 text messages, all variations of "please let me explain," and an impressive collection of voicemails I had zero intention of listening to. Sandwiched between Bennett's digital desperation was a text from Daphne. Breakfast? I'm bringing mimosas and divorce attorney recommendations. When people ask what true friendship looks like, it's someone who shows up at your door at 9 a.m. with champagne, orange juice, and a folder labeled scorched earth options in perfect calligraphy. So, Daphne said, settling onto my kitchen island bar stool, on a scale from donate his clothes to charity to sell his vintage baseball card collection on eBay for $5, how vindictive are we feeling today? I sipped my mimosa thoughtfully. I'm thinking somewhere between forensic accountant and notify his mother of every lie he's ever told me. That's my girl. She nodded approvingly. Strategic, not emotional. My phone buzzed with a text from Pearl. Channel 5 van outside your house. Also, HOA meeting emergency called about maintaining community standards during domestic disputes. Should I accidentally spill something on Homeowners Association President Gregory's white pants? I texted back, make it red wine. He's still bitter. I won the Halloween decoration contest last year. Looking up from my phone, I caught my reflection in the kitchen window. I didn't look like someone whose life had imploded approximately 14 hours ago. I looked curious, like a scientist observing an experiment. What happens when you remove the foundation from a structure built on lies? Daphne slid a business card across the counter. This is Ellis Blackwood, best divorce attorney in Dallas. She specializes in cases involving infidelity and hidden assets. Bennett won't know what hit him. Hidden assets? I raised an eyebrow. The apartment he claimed was being renovated for Sybil? He had to pay for that somehow. And I'm betting it wasn't with his reported income. The doorbell rang. I expected more neighbors with casseroles and thinly disguised hunger for gossip, but instead found Bennett's parents standing on my doorstep. Otto looked like he'd aged a decade overnight. Greta's eyes were red-rimmed, her normally perfect makeup absent. "We didn't call first," Otto said, his voice gruff with emotion. "Didn't want you to turn us away." "We had no idea," Greta added quickly. "Please believe that, Talia. We thought we knew our son." I stepped aside to let them in, feeling a strange comfort in their presence. They had been betrayed too. The son they thought they'd raised didn't exist. "We're staying at the Holiday Inn," Greta continued as they sat stiffly in my living room. We just can't face him right now." Otto cleared his throat. "We wanted you to know that whatever you need, in the divorce, witnesses, testimony about his character, anything, we're on your side." The absurdity of the situation, my in-laws offering to testify against their only son, prompted a laugh that sounded dangerously close to a sob. "That's not in the standard in-law contract, you know. You're supposed to take his side automatically." "We're Minnesotans," Otto replied with unexpected humor. "We believe in fairness and consequences." After they left, promising to keep in touch, I walked through the house Bennett and I had built together. Every photo, every piece of furniture, every stupid decorative bowl we'd argued about at Crate and Barrel. All of it felt like props from a play where I'd been cast as oblivious wife, without seeing the full script. My phone rang. Bennett again. This time, I answered. "Talia, thank God. Please, I just need 5 minutes." "Actually," I cut in, "I need access to our joint account to pay the locksmith. Since you're so concerned about home renovations, I thought you'd want to know I'm upgrading our security." "I'm staying at Wade's place," he said, ignoring my sarcasm. "Can we please meet somewhere? Coffee? Just to talk?" "Interesting suggestion," I replied, my voice dripping with false sweetness. "But I'm busy today doing inventory of everything you've been lying about. So far I've got your Thursday late nights at the office, that mysterious apartment, and your relationship status. What else should I add to the list while I have my notebook out?" His silence spoke volumes. "That's what I thought," I continued. "By the way, your parents stopped by. They wanted me to let you know they're Team Talia now. They even offered to testify about your character in court. Or rather, your lack thereof." "My parents came to see you?" His voice cracked with genuine surprise. "Turns out they value honesty. You might want to Google the concept. It'll be new territory for you." After hanging up, I called Ellis Blackwood and scheduled a consultation for the following morning. Then I texted my brother Sterling. "Need your help clearing Bennett's things from the garage. Payment in pizza and the satisfaction of handling his sports memorabilia without proper archival gloves." 15 minutes later, Sterling arrived with 2 empty storage bins and an expression that suggested he was barely containing his rage. "I've been thinking," he said casually, too casually, "about all those fishing trips I took him on, all those times I left him alone with my expensive gear while I checked the other spots, the trust I placed in him." "Sterling," I warned, "I'm just saying, it's a good thing I'm helping you today, because I might not be emotionally stable enough to be around his belongings tomorrow." We worked methodically, boxing up Bennett's life, his pretentious collection of pocket squares, his lucky interview tie, the monogrammed cufflinks I'd given him for our 5th anniversary. "Did you notice?" Sterling asked while wrapping Bennett's fantasy football trophy in newspaper. "How Sybil looked at you before she left? Not with hatred, but with recognition?" I paused, remembering. "Like we were unwitting members of the same terrible club." "Exactly. You know what that means, right?" I nodded. "She's as much a victim as I am. Bennett lied to both of us. Sterling placed the wrapped trophy in a box with surprising gentleness. And if he lied to both of you about something this fundamental, then what else is he lying about? I finished his thought, feeling the first spark of something beyond hurt and humiliation. Curiosity. Investigative, determined curiosity. By evening, when Daphne returned with Thai food and my mother in tow, Bennett's presence had been reduced to neatly labeled boxes in the garage and a hollow space in the closet where his designer suits had once hung. My mother, practical as always, surveyed the house. Good start. Tomorrow we change the locks, the security codes, the Wi-Fi password, and your direct deposit information at work. Then we begin the real work. Finding a good therapist? I suggested. No, dear, she replied, handing me a spring roll. Finding out exactly what else your husband has been hiding, because men who live double lives rarely stop at just one secret. 1 week after the birthday revelation, as it had been dubbed in my group chat, I sat across from Ellis Blackwood in her sleek downtown office. The view of the Dallas skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows perfectly matched her reputation. Impressive, intimidating, and expensive. So, Ellis said, reviewing the notes from our initial consultation, we have the security footage from the party, witness statements from over 60 people including his parents, and proof he maintained a separate apartment. That's already strong, but if we can demonstrate financial deception? She trailed off, tapping her Mont Blanc pen against her legal pad. I slid a manila folder across her glass desk. The joint account statements for the past 5 years. Ellis raised an impeccably groomed eyebrow. You work quickly. Amazing what spite can accomplish in 48 hours, I replied with a tight smile. Every Thursday for the past 4 years, he withdrew between $500–700 in cash. That's over $100,000 that disappeared without explanation. And did you ever question these withdrawals? Once, about 2 years ago. He said he was building my Christmas present fund. I thought he was saving for a trip or jewelry. Turns out he was funding his secret life with Sybil. Ellis made a note. This helps establish a pattern of deception. What about tax returns? That's actually why I'm here today. I was organizing our home office and found something interesting. I pulled out a second folder. This one containing documents I'd discovered hidden in a hollowed-out economics textbook on Bennett's bookshelf. A bookshelf I'd dusted weekly for years without ever suspecting it contained the key to his double life. These are tax documents for a business I've never heard of, Beckett Holdings, LLC. According to these papers, my husband has been running a consulting business on the side for 3 years, with revenue of over $200,000 annually, none of which he ever mentioned to his wife. You know, his legally bound financial partner under Texas marital property laws. Ellis's professional composure cracked slightly as she examined the papers. This is substantial. Did you know about this business? Not until yesterday. And here's where it gets interesting. I pulled out my phone and showed her a series of photos I'd taken. This is the listed address for Beckett Holdings. The images showed a nondescript office building in a business park across town. Yesterday, I paid this place a visit, told the receptionist I was delivering lunch to my husband. Imagine my surprise when she not only knew exactly who Bennett Beckett was, but directed me to Suite 305, which has his name on the door. Inside, I found this. The next photo showed a fully furnished office with framed degrees on the wall, client files, and a desk calendar full of appointments, none of which Bennett had ever mentioned to me. Suite 304, right next door, that's Sybil Lowell's pharmaceutical sales office. They've been working side by side for 4 years. Ellis's eyes widened. How did you get these photos? The cleaning lady was very sympathetic to my situation. Turns out she has an ex-husband who pulled something similar in 2019. For the first time, Ellis actually smiled. Mrs. Beckett, you are officially my favorite client this year. I'm just getting started, I replied, pulling out a third folder. Remember how Bennett claimed Sybil thought our house was under renovation? Well, I did some digging. The apartment he maintained for their meetings is owned by, wait for it, Beckett Holdings, LLC. And he's been writing it off as a business expense while using it for his affair. Tax fraud, Ellis murmured, almost reverently. Oh, the IRS will love this. And I found something else. I hesitated, still processing this particular discovery. Bank statements showing regular payments to a storage facility in Arlington. I drove there this morning, told them I lost my key, showed my ID with the Beckett name, and they let me in. Ellis leaned forward. And? 3 guesses what I found in a storage unit my husband never told me about. More evidence of the affair? Better. A collection of rare baseball cards and sports memorabilia he claimed was destroyed in a water leak at his office 3 years ago. The collection he collected the insurance payout for, $175,000. The adjuster's report is in there too. Ellis actually put her pen down. Insurance fraud on top of tax fraud and financial infidelity. Mrs. Beckett, your husband is going to regret the day he ever tried to deceive you. That's the goal, I said, feeling a strange calm settle over me. I want him to understand exactly what he's lost. Not just me, but everything. With this evidence, we can pursue not just division of known assets, but a full forensic accounting to uncover anything else he's hiding. And we can negotiate from a position of considerable strength. On my way home from Ellis's office, I stopped at a red light and caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. I looked different somehow, sharper, more focused. The woman Bennett had married was a trusting high school English teacher. The woman he'd face in court would be something else entirely. My phone buzzed with a text from Sybil. Can we meet? Neutral location. There's more you should know. I stared at those words, feeling a chill. More? What else could there possibly be? We agreed to meet at a Starbucks halfway between our workplaces the following afternoon. I arrived early, securing a corner table and ordering a chai latte I had no intention of drinking. My stomach was too knotted for caffeine. Sybil walked in looking nothing like the shocked woman from the party. Gone was the designer dress, replaced by simple jeans and a blouse. Her red hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail. She carried a laptop bag and moved with purpose. Thank you for meeting me, she said, sliding into the chair across from me. No preamble, no awkward small talk. I appreciated that. You said there was more I should know. She nodded, opening her laptop. I'm not just a pharmaceutical rep. That's my cover. I'm actually a forensic accountant working with the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. If she'd told me she was secretly a mermaid, I couldn't have been more shocked. We've been investigating a network of investment advisors running a sophisticated fraud scheme. Bennett came on our radar 2 years ago when he started moving large sums of money through his LLC. She turned the laptop toward me, showing a complex diagram of financial connections. I was assigned to get close to him. The relationship wasn't supposed to happen. You're an undercover FBI agent? I whispered, my worldview shifting yet again. Not exactly. Civilian consultant. But yes, I've been gathering evidence on your husband's business activities. And Talia, it's much worse than an affair and a secret office. She pulled out a USB drive. Everything's here. The shell companies, the offshore accounts, the clients he's been defrauding. Bennett isn't just a cheater. He's potentially facing federal charges. Does he know you're investigating him? No. The night of the party was... She winced. An unexpected complication. But professionally speaking, it might have done us a favor. His panic has caused him to make mistakes. He's moving money, closing accounts, contacting co-conspirators. Why are you telling me this? Sybil looked at me directly. Because you deserve to know the truth, and because we could use your help. Help the FBI? I echoed, staring at Sybil across the Starbucks table. The late afternoon sunlight streamed through the windows, casting dramatic shadows that seemed fitting for our cloak and dagger conversation. You have legitimate access to financial documents as his wife, Sybil explained. You can legally review joint accounts, tax returns, and household documents without raising suspicions. Plus, he's emotional right now, making mistakes. I took a sip of my untouched chai, playing for time while I processed this twist. Let me get this straight. My husband is not just a cheating liar with a secret office and apartment, but potentially a white-collar criminal working with a network of fraudsters. And you, the woman I found him with, are actually gathering evidence against him for the federal government. That's remarkably accurate, Sybil admitted. Hollywood couldn't write this, I muttered. I didn't mean for the personal relationship to develop, she added, having the decency to look uncomfortable. It was supposed to be casual contact, building trust as a business associate. But Bennett, she trailed off, has a certain charm when he wants something, I finished for her. Trust me, I know. I married him. Will you help us? I thought about Bennett's betrayal, the years of Thursday late nights, the lies about his business, the secret apartment, the double life he'd constructed while I dusted his bookshelf of hollowed-out economics textbooks. What do you need me to do? 2 days later, I invited Bennett to meet at a neutral location, an upscale restaurant downtown where the ambient noise would mask our conversation and the $18 cocktails might loosen his tongue. Ellis had coached me on what to say, what information to extract. The FBI had their list of questions, too. Bennett arrived looking simultaneously hopeful and wary. He'd trimmed his beard and worn the blue shirt I'd always said brought out his eyes. Classic manipulation. I almost admired his commitment to the technique. "Thank you for meeting me," he said, sliding into the booth. "I've been trying to reach you." "I needed time to think," I replied, channeling just the right amount of emotional fragility. "This has been a lot to process." His face softened with calculated sympathy. "I know, and I'm so sorry, Talia. The situation with Sybil, it wasn't what it looked like." I blinked back fake tears. "What was it then?" "A mistake. A stupid, terrible mistake." He reached for my hand across the table. "It didn't mean anything. It was just physical. You and I have something real." I let him hold my hand, fighting the urge to roll my eyes. Instead, I gave him a tremulous smile. "I'm trying to understand. How did it even start? With her office being right next to yours?" The trap was laid, and Bennett walked right into it. "We met through a business connection," he explained, relief evident in his voice now that I appeared receptive. "Her pharmaceutical clients overlapped with some of my consulting work. It just happened." "At your office? The one I didn't know about until last week?" He winced. "I should have told you about Beckett Holdings. I just wanted to build something on my own, prove I could be successful without riding the coattails of my family name." "So successful you needed a secret apartment too?" I asked, injecting just enough hurt to mask the interrogation. "That was for client meetings," he said quickly. "Sometimes they go late, and I needed a professional space close to the office." "Professional enough to tell Sybil you were single." His face fell. That was inexcusable. I panicked when she showed interest. One lie led to another. "Like the lies about your Thursday withdrawals? The cash from our joint account?" Bennett shifted uncomfortably. "Business expenses, networking events that needed cash. And the insurance claim on your baseball collection? The one sitting in a storage unit in Arlington?" His eyes widened. "How did you—" "Amazing what you find when you start looking," I said coolly. "But what I'm really curious about are your investment clients, the ones funneling money through Beckett Holdings." Bennett's expression transformed, alarm replacing contrition. "That's confidential business information. How do you even know about that?" I leaned forward. "Here's what's going to happen, Bennett. You're going to tell me everything about your business dealings, who you're working with, what you're doing with client funds, and exactly how deep this goes. Or I'm going to take everything I've found directly to the SEC and IRS." "You wouldn't," he whispered. "Try me. Your parents already offered to testify about your character. Imagine what they'll say when they learn about this too." 3 hours later, I left the restaurant with a recording of Bennett confessing to everything. The investment fraud scheme, the tax evasion, the insurance scam, and the names of his co-conspirators. All captured on the FBI-provided recording device concealed in my purse. 2 days after that, Bennett was arrested at his office along with 7 other investment advisors across Dallas. The morning news showed him being escorted out in handcuffs, his blue shirt wrinkled, his carefully trimmed beard unable to mask his shock. I watched the coverage from Ellis Blackwood's office, where I was signing final divorce papers. Thanks to Bennett's financial crimes, the judge had expedited our case and awarded me the house, substantial financial compensation, and a complete severance from any criminal liability for his actions. "You know," Ellis said as we watched Bennett duck into a police car on the office television. "In 15 years of practice, I've never seen someone so thoroughly hoisted by their own petard. I'm an English teacher, I replied with a satisfied smile. I appreciate a good literary device. That evening, as I sipped wine on my patio with Daphne, my mother, and, surprisingly, Sybil, I felt a sense of closure I hadn't expected to find so quickly. To justice, Sybil toasted, raising her glass, and to unexpected alliances. I still can't believe you're drinking with the other woman, my mother remarked, shaking her head in bemusement. She's not the other woman, I corrected. She's the federal informant who helped put a criminal behind bars. The affair was just collateral damage. Speaking of collateral, Daphne chimed in, the school board was impressed with how you handled this whole situation. Apparently, showing students that their teacher can maintain dignity while systematically dismantling a criminal enterprise is considered good role modeling. They're offering you the department chair position. I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. From oblivious wife to department chair. That's quite a promotion. Don't forget, instrumental in bringing down a multi-million-dollar fraud operation, Sybil added. I think I'll leave that off my resume, I replied. Some accomplishments are better enjoyed privately. As the sun set over Highland Park, I realized Bennett had inadvertently given me a gift. In trying to lead a double life, he'd forced me to discover my own strength, a strength I wouldn't be hiding again. 1 year after Bennett's spectacular birthday surprise and subsequent criminal conviction, I found myself sitting in the teacher's lounge during lunch break, scrolling through real estate listings. Not because I needed a new home. I loved my house, especially now that it was completely Bennett-free, but because I enjoyed looking at properties I could actually afford on my own. Stalking your ex-husband's prison commissary account again? Marnie, our school counselor, asked as she sat down beside me. Please, I scoffed, showing her my phone screen. I have better things to do with my time than worry about how many ramen packets Bennett can afford this week. I'm looking at vacation rentals, thinking about the Outer Banks this summer. My, how the tables have turned, she mused. Last year you were planning his surprise party, and now you're planning a beach vacation while he plans his appeal. Life really does come at you fast. 1 minute you're debating what flavor of birthday cake your husband might prefer, and the next you're testifying against him in federal court. It's funny how quickly "till death do us part" turns into "till federal prison do us part" when financial fraud enters the picture. Bennett received 8 years for his role in the investment scheme. With good behavior, he could be out in 5, just in time for me to be well established in my new role as department chair and completely moved on with my life. His co-conspirators received similar sentences, except for the ringleader who got 15 years. Turns out the justice system takes a dim view of people who defraud retirees out of their life savings. Sybil and I maintained an unusual friendship after the dust settled. Every few months we'd meet for coffee and catch up on life. She'd changed careers, moving from forensic accounting to financial literacy education. Preventing fraud is more satisfying than catching it after the fact, she'd explained during our last meeting. The most unexpected development came 6 months after Bennett's conviction, when his mother Greta called to invite me to lunch. I know this is unconventional, she'd said hesitantly over the phone, but Otto and I would like to maintain a relationship with you. We've always thought of you as a daughter. That lunch turned into a monthly tradition. We never discussed Bennett beyond necessary updates about his case. Instead, we talked about books, travel, my teaching career, and their retirement adventures. They'd finally taken that Mediterranean cruise they'd been planning for years. We realized life is too short to wait for the perfect time, Otto had explained. Sometimes you need a wake-up call to appreciate what you have and who you want in your life. My brother Sterling eventually stopped threatening bodily harm against Bennett, mostly because, as he put it, prison is doing a better job punishing him than I ever could. He'd channeled his protective energy into setting me up with eligible bachelors instead. So far, his matchmaking skills were questionable at best, catastrophic at worst. You'll thank me someday, he insisted after yet another disastrous blind date with his wife's cousin's workout buddy. I'd rather thank you for stopping, I replied. The money from the divorce settlement and the sale of Bennett's collectibles allowed me to pay off our mortgage entirely. At 35, I owned my home outright, something I never thought possible on a teacher's salary. The irony wasn't lost on me that Bennett's criminal behavior had inadvertently set me up for financial independence. My mother summed it up best. Sometimes trash takes itself out and leaves you a parting gift. Last week, I received a letter from Bennett, his first attempt at contact since sentencing. I recognized his handwriting on the envelope, but found I had no interest in whatever explanation or apology he might offer now. The letter went into the fire pit during a backyard gathering with friends, providing brief but satisfying fuel for our marshmallow roasting. To Bennett, Daphne had toasted with her perfectly charred marshmallow, "May your future be as empty as your promises and as short as your integrity." Looking back at the woman I was a year ago, the trusting wife planning a surprise party, I barely recognize her. She was a supporting character in someone else's story. Now I'm the protagonist of my own. The most valuable lesson from this ordeal wasn't about trust or betrayal or even love. It was about resilience. Discovering that when your life implodes, you don't have to go down with it. You can stand in the rubble, dust yourself off, and build something better from the pieces. Tomorrow is Bennett's birthday. I won't be planning a surprise party this year, or any year after. But I will be celebrating my freedom, my strength, and the surprising gift of starting over. As I tell my students when we study mythology, sometimes destruction is necessary for rebirth. The phoenix can't rise without the fire. And rise I did. From the ashes of betrayal to a life more authentic and fulfilling than I ever had with Bennett. That's not just revenge, that's transcendence. And that, as it turns out,
After the animal rescue mission from the California wildfire, I flew home earlier than planned, without telling my husband, to cook an anniversary dinner for our 8th wedding year. I tiptoed step by step toward the living room window, only to suddenly hear my husband's best friend's young child call him Daddy, while the child's mother kissed my husband and said, "Michael, you really are a wonderful father." That scene left me frozen in place. They were celebrating the birthday of a child unrelated to me, in the very house I paid for. I quietly recorded a video and left. The next morning, my husband came to my workplace and yelled, "What horrible things you did last night." My name is Michelle, 35 years old, a veterinarian and owner of Harbor Light Animal Clinic in Cambridge, Boston. After nearly 3 consecutive weeks in California, helping rescue animals injured in the wildfires, the mission ended 3 days earlier than expected, and I decided to fly home that very afternoon. I booked a noon flight from San Francisco to Boston, set to arrive early in the evening. I wanted to be home before Michael could find out, to prepare dinner for our 8th wedding anniversary. I paid extra to upgrade to business class, just to come home a bit sooner, just to see his smile when I stepped through the door with a small gift in hand. Throughout the flight, I thought of him, of his favorite dinner, the red stew I learned to cook just for him, of the burgundy bottle we'd been saving for a special occasion. I pictured him opening the door, surprised, then smiling. In my suitcase was a special gift, a silver necklace engraved with a wolf's paw, symbolizing loyalty, which I picked out after a successful surgery on an injured old dog in California. I believed it would be the perfect gift for a perfect anniversary. But life is rarely as perfect as we imagine. When the Uber dropped me off in front of our quiet neighborhood in Cambridge, I saw a silver sedan parked outside the house. That car, disturbingly familiar. I looked through the window and felt my chest tighten. It was Tiffany's Honda, Michael's close colleague and friend, a 3rd-grade teacher at the nearby elementary school. I remembered clearly, just yesterday morning, Tiffany had posted on Instagram that she'd be attending a 3-day teacher conference in Worcester. So why was she here, while I hadn't even returned home yet? A cold intuition made me ask the driver to drop me off at the end of the street. I quietly walked to the house, carrying the small gift box. The closer I got, the clearer the voices and laughter from inside became. Warm, intimate, familiar, but not meant for me. Through the slightly open door, I saw Michael blowing out candles with a little girl. The child called him Daddy, in a voice so innocent and bright, and he smiled, lifted her into his arms, kissed her hair, and said in that sweet voice I once believed was meant only for me, "Daddy's here, sweetheart." I stood frozen. The air around me felt frozen too. The gift box nearly slipped from my hand. I caught it with the other. I saw Tiffany, in a light blue floral dress, standing next to him, her gaze tender and intimate in a way that needed no explanation. On the table was a birthday cake with the words, "Happy Birthday, Lisa." And Lisa was Tiffany's 3-year-old daughter, the one I'd once noted had the same blue eyes as my husband. I used to think they were just close friends, that Michael was only helping Tiffany because she was a single mom. But now, hearing Daddy again, I understood everything. That child was calling my husband her father. I stepped back, then again, trying not to let anyone hear my broken breathing. I turned and hurried to the gate, heart pounding like it would explode. I don't remember calling the Uber, only that I sat inside it, headed to my clinic, moving on instinct. When I arrived, I sat in silence in the empty room. The white light reflected on the walls. The sterilizer machine hummed steadily, like the heartbeat of someone barely alive. I opened my phone, went on Facebook, scrolled through Tiffany's posts. There were photos of Lisa learning to talk. Tiffany wrote, "She just said, 'Mama!'" "She's so adorable beneath it," Michael had commented. "She's adorable like her mom." I had once scrolled past it without a hint of doubt. Now, all the pieces fit. Looking back at the timeline, I realized Lisa was born 4 years ago. The same time Michael often came home late, sometimes 1 or 2 in the morning, sometimes not at all, texting, "Tiffany's not okay. She just broke up. I'm afraid she might do something reckless." I used to think he was kind, compassionate. I was touched by my husband's empathy. But perhaps, back then, kindness had already become betrayal. I once believed our marriage was built on honesty, but now I see. Michael had betrayed me with the woman he called his best friend. I don't hate Tiffany the way I hate him. To me, she's just a lonely woman who went too far. But Michael, the man I once called my soulmate, he's the one who stabbed me with the very trust I gave him. I opened the notebook on my desk. The first page still had a list of vaccines for cats. I turned to a new page, picked up my pen, and wrote the first line. If loyalty had a shape, then today it shattered. I looked up, out the window where the early winter rain had started to fall. In that moment, I knew I would not let this pain pass like a memory. I would strike back, and I would reclaim justice for myself. Out there, Boston's lights were flickering on, but inside me, nothing was clear. I knew I had just witnessed something unforgivable, but I couldn't let him know I knew. I needed the truth, needed evidence, not just emotions. I picked up my phone, opened the chat with Michael, and tried to sound as normal as possible. The rescue ended earlier than expected, but I might have to stay a few more days to wrap things up. If I finish early, I'll catch the red-eye flight home, message sent. My heart thudded. Just 15 seconds later, he replied, "That's great news. I miss you so much. Once you've rested, let's do a belated anniversary dinner." I looked at the screen, a bitter smile creeping onto my face. He was still playing the perfect husband, as if last night he hadn't laughed with another child in this very house. The next morning, I returned home in silence. Michael had already left. On the kitchen counter were 2 mugs, his usual coffee, and another with a faint lipstick mark. I looked around. Nothing was messy. Everything was too perfect, too clean, like my life had been erased from it. I opened the drawer where he usually kept his wallet and car keys. A small piece of paper stuck out. I pulled it free. A folded receipt. Teddy's Toy Emporium, white wool stuffed teddy bear, $127, September 12th. September 12th. He had told me he was in New York meeting investors. I remember he video called me, smiling, saying, "I miss you." My hand shook. There was no more doubt. I sat down, opened my laptop. The screen cast a cold blue light on my face. I created a new document, typed 3 words in all caps, Justice Plan. I snapped a photo of the receipt, saved it into the first folder, named Day of Betrayal 1. Then I opened my notes and listed every detail. Tiffany's license plate, Michael's work hours, the late-night meetings he claimed were urgent. One by one, the puzzle pieces began falling into place. At 10:55 a.m., a loyal client came in with her elderly cat, Mrs. Whitmore, a retired lawyer I deeply respect. As I administered the shot, she looked at me and said softly but firmly, "My dear, your eyes say more than you realize. Something's wrong, isn't it?" I smiled, trying to cover it up. "No, just a bit tired." She nodded slowly and said, "Women only say tired when they're holding it all in. If you suspect someone, don't confront them without proof. Justice always sides with the patient." I stuck to the plan, not letting him know I was in Boston. At 3 p.m., just after finishing a minor surgery at the clinic, I texted Michael, keeping the tone of a wife still far away. "I'm wrapping up paperwork here in California. Might be a late one. How have things been at home?" He called back immediately. His voice was warm and familiar, so much so that if I hadn't known better, I might have believed him again. "Everything's fine. Don't worry about a thing. I've just been busy with work stuff. Oh, and I stopped by Tiffany's last night. She's not doing great again." I gripped the phone tightly. Last night was the night I stood outside the door, hearing a child call him Daddy. 1,000 questions burned in my throat, but I swallowed them down, letting out only a measured touch. "You and Tiffany. Is there something going on that makes you go over there so often?" He paused for a beat, then let out a perfectly crafted sigh, laced with wounded sincerity. "Are you doubting me, Michelle? You know Tiffany once had suicidal thoughts after her breakup. I just don't want her doing anything drastic. I thought you understood my heart. I let the silence linger, listening to the low hum of the air conditioner through the line like it was reminding me to stay calm. Then I spoke, slow and dry. I'm not doubting. I'm just asking. If you're truly just helping, then that's good. Thank you for trusting me," he said softly. "Come home. We'll talk things through. I love you." The call ended. I stared at the dark screen, my chest tight and hollow. Was I angry? Yes. But more terrifying was that I no longer wanted to argue. Not yet. Not without proof. That night, alone in the clinic office, I opened our joint bank app and reviewed recent transactions. The words appeared like a black ink stain. Transfer, $2,000. Recipient, Tiffany M. Note: Take care, birthday. 2041. I leaned back in my chair, hearing my heartbeat in every harsh thud. 8:41 p.m. Right after that call with me, he sent her money, with a note that read, "Take care." I screenshot the transfer and saved it to the Justice Plan folder. Transfer 2000 Tiffany 2041 PNG. I reopened the photo of Tiffany's silver car outside the house and added it to the evidence log. The pieces were falling into place. I searched my contacts for Mildred Harper, divorce attorney, a former client who once brought in her beagle for vaccines. I typed a quick email, attaching the teddy bear receipt and the screenshot. Dear Mildred, this is Michelle from Harbor Light Animal Clinic. I urgently need legal consultation regarding marriage and finances, possible infidelity, transfers from joint accounts to a third party, and procedures for requesting DNA testing. Attached are 2 initial pieces of evidence. I want to proceed lawfully and quietly until I have a complete file. Thank you, the send button turned gray. I rested my forehead against the back of my hand. Outside the clinic window, Boston glowed like a chessboard, each lit square a story no one else knows. On the desk, the Justice Plan notebook lay open. I added a new line. Day of Betrayal. 2. The first lie has been recorded. The distance between pity and complicity is just one excuse. I turned off the lights. In the dark, I heard something faint, the sound of trust falling to the bottom of my heart, and I knew, from this moment on, every road would lead to the truth. I barely slept that night. I lay curled on the small sofa in my clinic office, listening to the rain tapping on the roof and the wind slipping through the window frame. At first light, I brewed a strong black coffee, opened my laptop, and began combing through our joint account. Michael still believed I was in California. He had no idea I was less than 10 kilometers away, here in Cambridge, working on a plan taking shape. In the transaction history, a long list of unusual expenses appeared, like puzzle pieces I'd never seen before. Maple Leaf Elementary tuition, $3,800. Kids Planet Toy Store, $215. Happy Moments Birthday Photo Studio, $640. All notes repeated one name, Lisa. I opened my notebook and began building a timeline, left column for transaction dates, right column for the excuses Michael had given. Business trips. September 12th. White teddy bear. Meeting investor in New York. November 4th. Maple Leaf tuition. Trip to Dallas. December 21st. Birthday photo shoot. Year-end meeting in Chicago. Each line matched chillingly. For 4 years, every night I stayed up saving the lives of helpless creatures. He was raising another family. With the money I earned. Near noon, my phone buzzed. A reply from Mildred Harper, the lawyer I had emailed the night before. Michelle, I've reviewed your materials. This is a clear case of infidelity and financial abuse. Do not confront him yet. Keep gathering evidence, statements, transfers, invoices, every expense. I recommend preparing a divorce petition and a DNA test request. Stay calm, keep him unaware. Justice takes time, but we will get it. I read the email 3 times, then typed back. Understood. I'll gather more over the next few days. He won't suspect a thing until it's too late. 30 minutes later, I sent Michael a short message, setting the next piece in motion. I'm back in Boston. Tired, but okay. I think I'll stay home for a few days before returning to work. Within 5 minutes, he replied, So happy to hear that. I'll come home early tonight. I want to make things right, Michelle. I looked at the screen. A faint smile crossed my face. He still thought I'd just arrived. He had no idea I'd seen everything. That evening, Michael came home earlier than usual. He brought tulips, the flowers I used to love, but now only felt like a chokehold. He smiled, wrapped his arms around me from behind. His cologne hadn't changed, familiar enough to make my chest ache. I'm sorry I haven't been more attentive, he whispered. You've been so tired. What if we took a weekend in Maine? I turned to him, smiling lightly, voice calm as air. Sounds nice. I could use a break, too. He took my hand, looked deep into my eyes, and I saw a man who could act down to the last detail. I only nodded. I had to pretend. Mildred's advice echoed. Don't confront him without enough evidence. While he showered, I opened my phone, captured the latest bank statement, and emailed it to Mildred. In the notes, I typed, "This month shows a new $5,200 transfer to account HM. Coincides with Maple Leaf tuition. Likely Tiffany Morgan." I saved a copy, turned off the screen. Michael stepped out of the bathroom, hair still damp, wearing that familiar half-smile, the smile that once made me love him and now left me hollow. "Thank you for believing in me," he said. "I promise everything will be okay." I only nodded. That night, while he slept, I lay still, phone glowing under the covers, and wrote one more line in the justice plan. He says he loves me with words. But he pays for another love. And money doesn't lie. Outside the window, Boston's rain returned. In the soft yellow glow of the lamp, I looked at the man lying beside me and knew that from now on, every breath he took was part of my plan. 3 days later, Michael told me to dress up for his firm's fundraiser, a high-profile event for major investors in the financial sector. He said it was a chance for us to show up as a couple again after such a busy time. And I understood instantly. He needed the mask of a happy marriage. I chose a fitted long black dress, paired with the ivory silk shawl he'd gifted me for our 3rd anniversary. Everything was curated, from outfit to smile. As we stepped into the grand lobby of the Fairmont Copley, hundreds of crystal glasses sparkled under golden chandeliers, soft jazz weaving between murmured conversations. He placed his hand on my back and whispered, "You've always been the best part of my life." I smiled faintly. A good liar always sweetens the blade. The event began. Michael mingled with groups of guests, shaking hands, laughing, proudly introducing me. "This is Michelle, my biggest supporter through every step of my career." Everyone looked at us like a perfect couple. I smiled politely, listening quietly, feeling the invisible cracks beneath the polished surface. And then I saw her. Tiffany, in a pale violet dress, her hair softly curled, wearing a silver star brooch. She entered the hall like a guest of honor, name badge in hand. "Tiffany Morgan, community education consultant." I nearly laughed. Consultant? She had just been promoted in Michael's new narrative, his sponsored project. Michael saw her, and for a split second, their eyes met. Something electric passed between them, long enough for me to recognize a look he never gave me. She nodded. He gave a subtle nod back. But just minutes later, they clinked glasses and exchanged a warm smile, the kind shared by two people who've known more than wine. I held my champagne glass, stepped toward the back of the hall, and gently opened my purse. Beneath tissues and lipstick, my phone was recording. I aimed the camera in their direction, pretending to check messages while it captured every second of Michael and Tiffany's interaction, the smile of two people who knew exactly who they were deceiving. I didn't drink another drop. I just stood there, watching, reminding myself, sometimes justice doesn't come from courtrooms, but from the moments people think no one's watching. When the event ended, Michael held my hand, flashes going off around us. "Thank you for being with me tonight," he said. I answered softly, "That's what a wife's supposed to do, right?" He nodded, not realizing that sentence was double-edged. That night, after he fell asleep, I pulled out my phone, plugged it in, and replayed the 2-minute video. In the glowing light of the ballroom, Michael and Tiffany's faces were clear. Their eyes, their distance, their smiles, all spoke the truth. I clipped a short segment, emailed it to Mildred with a brief note. First piece of evidence. The screen blinked. Sent successfully. I stared at those words for a long time, then closed the laptop. Outside the window, City lights reflected on the glass, casting my shadow back at me. For the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. I was coming back, not as a wife, but as the woman rewriting her own justice. The next morning, I arrived at Mildred's office in downtown Boston. A light rain was falling, mist veiling Beacon Street like a gray curtain. I walked in, carrying the USB drive with the footage from last night's fundraiser. Mildred was waiting in her small office full of divorce files, her gaze firm yet full of empathy. I sat down, my hands still cold, but my voice steady. "I'm ready now, Mildred. Enough is enough." She nodded, plugged the USB in, and watched the short video. The glow of the screen lit up her stern face. After a few silent seconds, she said slowly, "This is more than clear. We'll begin divorce proceedings immediately, and I want you to request a DNA test to confirm that child is Michael's. If so, he can be charged with concealing a dependent and financial misrepresentation." I listened to every word, like hearing the war drums at the start of a true battle. That same morning, Mildred helped me file the official divorce petition with the Suffolk County Court. The packet was over 10 pages long, with all evidence attached: bank statements, transfers, receipts, the video. I signed my name at the bottom, my pen shaking slightly, but the stroke resolute. That afternoon, Mildred contacted the Massachusetts Child Support Enforcement Agency, reporting suspicions of Michael hiding a child, an act subject to civil charges and severe penalties. I sat across from her, watching each fax go out, my heart pounding yet strangely relieved. Every sheet sent peeled back another layer of his mask. But Mildred knew that to win, I'd need more than paperwork, visual evidence. She referred me to Joseph Turner, a private investigator she'd worked with on high-stakes financial divorce cases. That afternoon, we met at a small cafe near the Charles River. Joseph was in his 40s, tall, quiet, eyes sharp as blades. After my brief summary, he asked only one question. "What level of evidence are you after?" "Suspicion or certainty?" I answered clearly, "Certainty and legal." 2 days later, I received an email from Joseph. Subject line, "Initial observations." He wrote concisely, with attached photos and a detailed report. Michael left his office at least 3 times this week during lunch, around 12:10 to 1:45 p.m. He drove to Riverview Place Apartments in Somerville, where Tiffany Morgan resides. He parked in the garage and went up to apartment 307. He stayed about an hour and a half, then returned to work by 2 p.m., as if coming back from a client lunch. I opened each photo. Undeniable. Michael stepping out of his car, holding a paper bag from a nearby bakery, smiling as Tiffany opened the door. Pictures of them leaving the unit together, her walking him to the parking lot, brushing his shoulder before he walked away. Joseph concluded, "The visits are consistent every Tuesday and Thursday." This constitutes repeated infidelity. I stared at the images, no longer in pain, only cold and resolved. The man who said he was meeting clients had been spending lunch breaks cheating. I saved all the photos to the Justice Plan folder, carefully numbered. That night, I sent them all to Mildred, along with this note. "Mildred, here is direct evidence. He meets Tiffany twice a week during lunch. Enough for court." Her response came almost instantly. "Good. I'll prepare the supplemental file. From now on, Michelle, every step you take is protected by law. We won't fight with pain anymore, but with evidence." I looked out the window. The Boston sunset reflected off the Charles River, staining the sky red. I breathed deep and whispered to myself, "He once used time to hide his lies. I'll use every minute now to bury them. The next morning, Michael left early as usual. He kissed my cheek, said he had an important meeting. I simply nodded, silently watching him fade out the door. Once I heard his car pull away, I reached for my phone. I opened my contacts, saw his name on screen, then called. My voice was so calm, it surprised even me. "Can we meet this afternoon?" "At River Bean Cafe, near your office. I want to talk." There was a pause on his end. Then he replied, as gently as ever, "Sure." "But why not wait till tonight and talk at home? You just got back. I want to cook dinner for you." I smiled, keeping my tone flat. "No need. I prefer talking outside. Too many things at home keep us from saying what we really mean." He hesitated a second, then agreed. "All right." I want us to talk seriously, too. That afternoon, I arrived 15 minutes early, choosing a window seat where sunlight streamed across my steaming cappuccino. I sat quietly, opened my bag, double-checked the evidence on my phone. When Michael walked in, wearing a white shirt and navy tie, the same smile on his face, it was as if nothing had ever happened. He kissed my forehead, a gesture that once thrilled me, now cold as glass. We sat. He talked about new projects, maybe starting his own fund. I let him speak, let him settle into his polished husband role. When he paused, I slid my phone across the table, opened a video file. On screen appeared a dim shot of our living room. Yellow lights, a birthday cake, and a child's voice rang clearly. "Daddy?" Then Michael's voice, tender and sweet to the bone. "I'll always be here." Michael froze. He stared at the screen, then at me, face draining of color. "Michelle, when did you film this?" I didn't answer. I set down my cup, voice low and steady. "That night. When you blew out candles with another woman's child. In my house." He swallowed hard, tried to steady his tone. That was Lisa. You know her. Tiffany asked me to watch her sometimes. I said that to comfort the girl. I didn't want her feeling unloved. Michelle, she doesn't deserve to be hurt." I laughed, but it came out sharp as broken glass. "Doesn't deserve to be hurt? You're saying that to me? Do you know what truly doesn't deserve pain, Michael?" A wife's trust. I took an envelope from my bag, unfolded documents. Teddy bear receipt dated September 12th, Maple Leaf tuition statements, transfer proof to Tiffany Morgan, and the photo from the fundraiser where he toasted with her in the hotel lobby. I laid each one on the table, voice even and cold. "Here's the tuition you paid. Here's the toy you bought on the day you said you were in New York. And here, the moral man, toasting with his mistress at a company event." He couldn't speak. I saw his throat twitch, hands shaking as he stared at the evidence. Finally, he lowered his head, voice rough. "I'm sorry. Michelle, I messed up. I was stupid, cowardly. I didn't know it would go this far. It's all my fault, mine alone." I looked at him, no longer the man who was once my whole world, but just someone who had lost the game he rigged. I said softly, eyes fixed on my cooling coffee, "You have 24 hours to leave the house. After that, my attorney will contact you. Don't try to appeal to emotion anymore, Michael. I have proof, and I have the law." He looked up, eyes drained, not angry, just a man who'd lost everything. I stood, placed cash on the table, and said quietly, without looking back, "Thank you. Because of you, I learned how to trust myself." I walked out, leaving behind a man bowed in silence. Outside, the wind stirred, coffee scent mingling with autumn leaves. I opened my phone and texted Mildred. "It's done." He confessed. ready for the next step. I turned off the screen, stood to leave, but just as my hand touched the door, Michael's voice called from behind, no longer trembling or regretful, but cold and bitter. "If you think you can take me down that easily, you're wrong. I'll hire the best attorney in Boston. That house, your clinic, they're marital assets. You won't keep anything." I paused a second, turned to face him. His eyes no longer held guilt, but fear of losing control. I replied softly, but loud enough, "Then try me, Michael. This time, the law is on my side." I turned, pushed open the door, and stepped out. Behind me, his heavy breathing dissolved into the cold wind. Outside, Boston was foggy, the streetlights reflecting off the Charles like 1,000 mirrors, revealing a woman who had just stopped being afraid. That evening, the house was eerily quiet. After the confrontation at the cafe, Michael hadn't dared return. I sat in front of my computer with only the ticking wall clock and the soft rain brushing against the window as company. I opened the browser, the cursor blinking in the search box. Boston Women's Forum, Marriage and Family section. I logged in with an anonymous account named The Vet's Wife. With trembling fingers, I typed, not with rage, but with the stillness of someone who had seen everything. "My husband is a successful man in finance. He speaks of ethics, trust, and family, all while secretly betraying me for 4 years with the woman he called his best friend. They have a child together, while I was still clinging to the belief that our marriage could be saved. I'm not looking for pity. I just want other women to know, when a man says he's meeting a client, sometimes he's just with someone else." I reread the post, then hit submit. Within minutes, hundreds of views. An hour later, over 5,000. Comments poured in. Women sharing similar stories, words of support, others outraged on my behalf. One wrote, "Is he with Brightfield Capital? I heard of a CEO who preaches ethics but lives a lie." Another chimed in, "Sounds like Michael R., always speaking at those investment seminars." If it's him, what a fraud. I didn't reply. I just watched the comments scroll by, feeling both chilled and liberated. I didn't need to name him. The truth was speaking for itself. By morning, the post had spread to Twitter and Reddit. From an anonymous story, it had become a hot topic in Boston's finance circles. Memes mocking the hashtag #ThePerfectCEO flooded timelines. Quotes from Michael's talks on professional integrity were turned into jokes. By noon, I got a message from Tiffany. "Michelle, please, stop! I'm about to be suspended. The school is investigating. Lisa is still a child. She'll be hurt. Please think of her." I read it, then locked my phone. I didn't hate Tiffany, but I owed her nothing. They chose this path. I was just shining a light where they tried to keep it dark. That same afternoon, Mildred called. Her voice was calm but pleased. "Michelle, the news is spreading faster than I thought. Brightfield's investors are demanding an internal audit. They want to know how much Michael spent on undocumented expenses. Shall I submit the bank statements?" I replied quietly, "Do it. I want it all out in the open." That night, Michael came home. His shirt wrinkled, tie loose. He threw his keys on the table, eyes frantic. "What did you do, Michelle?" "The office is a mess. Investors are threatening to pull out. Do you want me to lose everything?" I looked at him, expression steady, unshaken. "No, Michael. I didn't do anything. You did." 4 years ago, he fell silent, bit his lip, and walked out. The door clicked shut, leaving only his fading cologne in the air. I sat down, opened my anonymous post. Over 12,000 shares. No names needed. All of Boston knew. I opened the Justice Plan notebook and wrote one more line. "Sometimes, to expose darkness, you just have to turn on a small light." The glow of the screen lit my face, no longer that of a betrayed wife, but of a woman who had made the liar tremble before the truth. 2 days after the post, I did nothing more. I didn't need to. Once the truth had been revealed, it found its own way forward. I only took calls from Mildred and waited to see how justice would unfold. That morning, Mildred called me from her office. Her voice was firm, tinged with quiet satisfaction. "The court has granted the DNA testing request, Michelle. Preliminary results will be in within 2 weeks. Also, the Child Support Services Agency has issued a temporary freeze on Michael's personal accounts for financial obligation verification. I've also submitted the statements you gave me. The transfers to Tiffany will definitely be investigated." I listened, filled with a strange calm. Thank you, Mildred. At last, the law is beginning to speak. That afternoon, I stopped by Maple Leaf Elementary, where Tiffany teaches. I wasn't there to confront her, only to leave an anonymous envelope in the principal's mailbox. Inside was a printed copy of the now viral article, along with a handwritten note. A teacher at this school may be involved in an ethical scandal that could affect the institution's reputation. No signature was needed. I just walked away, quietly, as if I had never been there. That evening, the first message arrived. An acquaintance from the parent group wrote to me, "Tiffany got called in by the principal." "She's panicking. Might be suspended." I read it without trembling. I wasn't seeking revenge. I simply stopped protecting a lie. The next morning, the media started picking up the story. The headline on Boston Finance Weekly read, "Brightfield Capital faces ethical crisis. Senior fund manager accused of misconduct and personal scandal." Beneath it was a picture of Michael in a suit, smiling confidently at an investment conference. The comments below the article were merciless. Ethical investing, hypocritical living, the paradox of modern Wall Street. If he couldn't keep his wife's trust, how can he manage our money? That afternoon, Mildred sent me a photo of an internal memo from Brightfield Capital. "The board has decided to suspend Mr. Michael R., senior portfolio manager, pending audit and internal investigation." I read the words "suspend from duty" twice, then smiled. "Finally, someone is holding him accountable," I whispered. That night, Tiffany sent me another message, longer than any before. "Michelle, you've won. I've lost everything. Please, I'm begging you, stop. Lisa's not at fault. I just want to raise my child in peace." I stared at the screen, not responding. There was no need to. Society, public opinion, and justice were finishing what I had started. When I closed the laptop, I reopened my Justice Plan notebook. The final line of the day, I wrote in small, steady script. When justice begins to work, I don't need to scream. I just need to stand still and let the truth speak for me. Outside, the autumn wind swept through the window frame, carrying the scent of light rain and the distant echo of car horns. Boston had never felt so peaceful, at least not to me. 3 weeks later, with the scandal still making headlines, I decided it was time to close the chapter. Not with silence, but with truth made public. I booked a table at the Grand Ivy, a restaurant by the Charles River, where we once celebrated our 3rd wedding anniversary. This dinner wasn't just a gathering of friends. It was my final trial, one where justice didn't lie in a judge's hands, but in the eyes of those who had once believed in us. I sent invitations to our closest mutual friends, and to both Michael and Tiffany. In the note, I kept it brief. "This is a farewell dinner. Come if you still believe in the truth." That night, the Grand Ivy banquet hall shimmered in golden light, crystal glasses glittering under chandeliers. I arrived early, wearing a long black dress, hair neatly pinned, makeup soft but sharp. When I looked in the mirror, I no longer saw the woman who cried in the dark. I saw someone who had turned pain into power. One by one, my friends arrived. The Whitleys, Jenny and Mark, a few colleagues from the vet clinic. At last, Michael walked in, Tiffany by his side, their faces tense, trying to maintain composure. I smiled and welcomed guests as if nothing had happened. As dinner neared its end, I rose gently and lifted my glass. Thank you all for coming. Tonight, I won't say much. I just want to share one thing. The truth sometimes needs light, and tonight, I want to shine that light. The room fell silent. I signaled the tech staff. The large screen at the back lit up. The image appeared. The very video I had recorded that night in my own living room. Lisa's voice rang out, innocent and clear. Daddy? Then Michael's, warm and affectionate. I'll always be here. A few gasps. Some covered their mouths. All eyes turned to Michael. But I didn't stop there. I played the DNA results Mildred had sent just yesterday. The test confirms a 99.97% probability of biological relation between Michael R. and Lisa Morgan. The banquet hall was silent. I could hear Tiffany's sharp breaths in the corner. She broke into sobs, her hand trembling as she clutched Michael's arm. He only bowed his head, his face pale. I stepped into the center of the hall, voice steady and clear. 4 years. 4 years of lies, of promises, of nights I believed you were working late. I don't need an explanation. I just want everyone to see. Justice doesn't always come from courtrooms. Sometimes it comes from ending silence. No one spoke for a few seconds. Then Jenny, who once attended our wedding, stood first. Michelle, I believe you. Then Mark, then the Whitleys. Then one by one, everyone stood, slowly but resolutely. There's no room for betrayal in our circle. Tiffany buried her face, tears soaking the napkin. Michael still didn't lift his head, hands clenched tightly as if holding on to the last shred of pride. I looked at them one last time and nodded. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. From now on, I hope you two live truthfully with each other, the way I've lived truthfully with myself. I walked out, leaving behind heavy stares, whispered words, and a truth freshly unveiled under the glamorous lights. The breeze off the Charles River brushed gently past, carrying a soft chill. I stood on the steps, breathing deep. Behind me, an old chapter was collapsing. Ahead, a new one was opening. No more lies, only light and freedom. 3 days after the evening at the Grand Ivy, the storm officially broke. The news spread faster than Michelle had imagined. On financial media sites, bold headlines emerged. Brightfield Capital under internal investigation amid ethics scandal and alleged embezzlement. At the Brightfield office, the tension was palpable. David Clark, a longtime partner and head of auditing, discovered irregularities in spending. In an internal email, he wrote, "A sum of $120,000 was withdrawn from the contingency fund 3 months ago, without valid invoices. Upon review, the transaction was made by Michael R., labeled as Maple Leaf Community Project Support. But David didn't take long to connect Maple Leaf to the elementary school where Tiffany Morgan teaches. He immediately contacted Mildred, Michelle's attorney, to verify the connection. When cross-referenced with Michelle's evidence, tuition receipts, bank transfers, gifts, and aligned expenditures, everything became alarmingly clear. Michael had embezzled company funds to support his mistress and their child. Mildred forwarded the entire case file to Brightfield's Audit Division and the Massachusetts Financial Oversight Committee. Within 48 hours, Brightfield Capital released a public statement. We have terminated Mr. Michael R., Senior Portfolio Manager, for serious breaches of ethical and financial conduct. His personal accounts have been frozen pending investigation. Authorities are proceeding with prosecution. As for Tiffany Morgan, after her suspension, she was officially dismissed from Maple Leaf Elementary for seriously damaging the school's reputation. She packed her desk in silence, her face gaunt, while colleagues avoided eye contact as she walked the hallway. Meanwhile, Michelle visited her lawyer's office. She signed the divorce papers, the final page, ending 8 years of marriage. The court awarded her full ownership of the Cambridge home and the Harbor Light Animal Clinic. Michael didn't contest. Perhaps he knew he no longer had the right. A few days later, the Child Support Agency issued its official ruling. Mr. Michael R. is ordered to reimburse all past expenses and provide ongoing financial support for the child Lisa Morgan. Per Massachusetts state law, Mildred informed Michelle that the case had been referred to the Bureau of Financial Investigations for embezzlement and fraud. The proposed sentence could reach up to 6 years in prison. That evening, Michelle returned home, sitting in the empty kitchen. The soft yellow light fell across the wooden table, once the setting for dinners, stories, and laughter. She opened her laptop and read the latest headline. Former Brightfield fund manager faces embezzlement charges. Estimated losses at $120,000. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply. No more tears, no more shaking. Only peace, the kind found by those who have weathered the storm and remained standing. Justice begins with truth, she whispered. The wind whispered through the window, carrying the chill of Boston's November air. Michelle looked outside. The sky still dark, but in the distance, streetlights shimmered on the surface of the Charles River, sparkling like a quiet promise that even the deepest darkness must one day give way to light. 5 weeks later, I sat in my new office, a small but sunlit space, where the nameplate had just gone up a few weeks ago. Phoenix Divorce Solutions. The name Phoenix was not just a symbol of rebirth. It was my story. Someone once burned by betrayal, who had learned to rise from her own ashes. Mildred, the woman who had stood by me when everything collapsed, was now my official partner. We started this firm to help women reclaim their financial rights and dignity through legal counsel, asset management, and psychological therapy. Every day, I met new faces. A middle-aged woman clutching bank statements her husband had controlled. A young mother holding her child, her eyes lost but resilient. I saw myself in them. Women who once thought justice was a luxury until they learned how to claim it. One afternoon, I was invited to speak at the Women's Financial Freedom Conference, an event bringing together hundreds of women, lawyers, entrepreneurs, and social activists. As I stood on stage, the spotlight on me, I saw eyes looking up, expectant, empathetic, trusting. I began. There was a time I believed justice meant making others pay. But then I realized true justice is when you get yourself back, when pain no longer controls you, but becomes the strength to lift others. The applause was long and warm. Mildred smiled from the front row, nodding gently, a silent blessing. 2 months later, I heard Michael had been sentenced to 6 years in prison for embezzlement and financial fraud. He was stripped of all authority in the investment world, lost his reputation, lost everything he once took pride in. As for Tiffany, after being fired from the school, she moved back in with her parents in suburban Worcester, unable to find new work. I didn't feel joy, nor sadness. It was simply a natural consequence, the result of choices they had made. As for me, I returned to the simple life I had once forgotten. On weekends, I visited the Animal Rescue Center in Cambridge, where it all began. I adopted 3 abandoned animals: an old Labrador, a limping corgi, and a black cat named Midnight. I cared for them, played with them, and sometimes smiled at the thought that by saving these small lives, I was saving myself. In the late afternoon, as the sun dipped behind flaming red trees, I sat by the window, watching people pass by. A hot cup of tea on the table, 3 animals curled up beneath my feet. I thought to myself, justice doesn't end with punishment. It ends with peace. And for me, peace had begun. On an early winter morning, the season's first snow fell gently on the glass roof of the Cambridge Rescue Center. I stopped by as usual, but today a special soul caught my attention. A small golden-haired dog, blind, yet still lifting its head at every sound. They said it had been rescued from the wildfires in California the year before, during the same time I was there on a work trip. They hadn't named it yet, but I simply smiled and said, "Her name is Hope." As I held Hope in my arms, I felt my heart beat with a new rhythm, no longer heavy, but light as breath. She trembled in my hands, seeking warmth, and I realized I had once been just like her, lost in darkness, guided only by the feeling in my chest. I brought Hope home, settling her beside the 3 other little creatures. They curled around her, as if they understood that here, no one had anything left to fear. That afternoon, while reorganizing my office, I found a small box high on the shelf. Inside was the silver necklace I had once planned to give Michael for our 8th anniversary. I held it for a long moment, then hung it on the wall beside my desk. In the dim light, the silver glinted like a quiet reminder. Beneath it, I carved into a wooden plaque. Loyalty belongs only to honesty. That night, I opened my justice plan notebook again. The pages were filled with handwritten notes, evidence, statements, old tears, all now lying silent before me. I turned to the last page and wrote a single line, short but enough to close the journey. I didn't lose everything. I only lost an illusion. I closed the notebook and placed it on the shelf. Outside, the wind brushed past the window, carrying the sounds of ordinary life, traffic, laughter, Hope softly barking in her sleep. And I knew my life had truly begun again. 3 months later, on a Sunday morning, I took Hope for a walk in the public garden. The sky was clear, the sunlight dancing on the lake. As I fastened Hope's leash near a bench, a voice softly called from behind. "Michelle?" I turned. Tiffany stood there, gaunt, her face thinner, her eyes both shy and uncertain. Beside her was Lisa, now 5, her blonde hair in loose curls. The child smiled at me, innocent, untouched by the mistakes of adults. Lisa ran forward and pointed at Hope. "You know my daddy?" I knelt down, gently smiled, and brushed her hair. "I used to know someone, but now I know peace." Tiffany stood still, tears running silently down her cheeks. Her voice cracked. I'm sorry. I lost everything, and I know you never wanted that. I just wanted to say thank you for not destroying me the way I did to you." I looked at her for a long moment, my voice soft as the breeze. "I never wanted anyone to suffer, Tiffany. I just needed peace. The rest, each of us has to face what we've sown." Tiffany nodded, took Lisa's hand, and walked away. I watched them go. No hatred, no pity, only a sadness light as dust in the sun. That afternoon, my sister Rebecca called. You know Michael's working as a waiter now, downtown. Tiffany's tutoring privately. Life has its ways of teaching people, I answered softly, a faint smile on my lips. No one needs to suffer, Rebecca. I just needed peace. That's enough. I looked at Hope, curled up by my feet, and thought, maybe forgiveness isn't forgetting. Maybe it's finally laying down what's become too heavy to carry. A few months later, I was invited to speak on the popular podcast, Women Who Rise. That day's topic, Women and Rebirth After Betrayal. I sat before the microphone, warm yellow lights shining down, the host's voice calm and kind. Michelle, if you could say just one thing to the women listening right now, what would it be? I smiled, looking straight into the recorder. Betrayal doesn't end you. It only ends the illusion of who you trusted. The only thing that truly ends a woman is when she stops believing in herself. The room was silent for a few seconds. Then the host gently placed a hand on my shoulder and nodded. Final scene. That evening, I walked Hope along the banks of the Charles River. The sunset glowed warm orange, mirrored on the water. Hope walked slowly beside me, ears low, cautious but steady. Like me, step by step, finding direction in a new world. The breeze passed by, carrying the scent of autumn leaves and the distant chime of church bells. I looked up and smiled, not because the past was gone, but because it no longer defined me. Justice begins with truth. Peace begins when you forgive yourself. The screen faded to black, leaving only the reflection of sunset on water and the image of Michelle and Hope continuing their walk toward the light. If this story touched you, please click like so more women can find it. And don't forget to subscribe, so together we can spread real journeys where justice isn't just a verdict, but the peace we reclaim for ourselves